Good morning everyone. My name is Shoibal Rai, and as you are already aware of, I am the current biology faculty from Nucleon Coaching Institute, and with today's video we have brought you a comprehensive solution to the recently conducted class 10th biology examination paper. Okay, and with this video I hope that your doubts and as well as your answers are very much clear as you need to be. Okay, without wasting any more of your time, let's begin. As you can see, some of the qualifications that I possess. The first question that we are presented with is Spirogyra, despite being a multicellular organism, still shows a simple reproductive method. Select the correct option with regard to reproduction in Spirogyra. So with this, we already know that Spirogyra goes through fragmentation, and that fragmentation is its own asexual reproduction and its own body pieces. So asexual reproduction by breaking up of Spirogyra filaments into smaller parts is the appropriate and correct answer. Moving on to the second question is the genotype of green stem tomato plant is denoted by capital G, and that of purple stem tomato plant is small g. Hybrid of a cross between these two were self-pollinated to obtain the F2 progeny. What will be the ratio of capital G, small g and small g in this F2 progeny? So from this question itself it is very clear that we are going to receive the F2 progeny, and the F2 progeny is nothing but a self cross of your F1 progenies. So F1 for this will be capital G and small g, a heterozygote. So the heterozygote is crossed with another heterozygote, and that is going to give us one capital G, two capital G small g, and one capital small g. So the ratio is 1:2:1. If you have remembered, or if you had remembered your genotypic ratios, that would also suffice. Third, identify the type of trophic movement that is responsible for the movement of pollen tube towards an ovule in the following options. So as in previous classes also we have already, or I have already discussed with you, that biology as in such is not very complex. All you need to know is that you can break the words. So if you break these words, hydroanthropism, it simply means the direction of your water column, or the movement in the direction of your water column. The movement of water column is just opposite to the gravity. That means it has to go up. Okay, so is or does any pollen tube grow upwards? No, it does not. It grows downwards. It moves along the geological axis. The geotropism is the correct answer. If the stomatal pore is open, it indicates which situation from the following. So if the stomata is open, the only correct answer is the guard cells have swelled due to the inflow of water, and this is called as turgid pressure or turgor pressure that are built up in this stomata for it to get swelled up and open up. Okay, which of the following limits the number of trophic levels in a food chain? Your first clue is your food chain, and from the option only one represents food, so the only correct option will be deficient food supply, because that is the question that has been asked. Okay, that is the question that has been asked, that what is that source, or what is that only cause that is going to limit the number of trophic levels in a food chain? So that will be deficient food supply. Moving on, take a note of these questions. Okay, take a note of these questions. From this first question, the following events occur during the process of photosynthesis. Choose the option that indicates the correct events. So oxidation of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. If you oxidize carbon dioxide, it simply means, oxidation simply means the addition of an oxygen molecule or an addition of an oxygen atom. So if you add simply oxygen, is it going to give you carbohydrate? No, it is not. For carbohydrate you need an H also, so that is through hydration of your CO2 to carbohydrate. So the first option is wrong. Second option is conversion of light energy into chemical energy. That is correct. Absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. That is the purpose of chlorophyll, to absorb various frequencies or various wavelengths of light and transfer that light energy into chemical energy. Conversion of hydrogen and oxygen into water, no, that is not the case. Hydrogen and oxygen are not converted into water inside that, it is just as a byproduct that is released as a product of respiration. Okay, so the only correct option are 2 and 3, so the option is B. Moving on to the next question. In the given figure, identify the trophic level having maximum concentration of harmful chemicals. What can have the maximum number of or concentration of harmful chemicals? The one that contains the maximum number of your population or the individuals, that is in T1. So the correct answer is T1. Now for the next question, these are simply assertion and reasons. You can simply see it. Take a note of it if you want. Take a note of it if you want. And then moving further, the first assertion is that there are generally a greater number of individuals at lower trophic levels of an ecosystem. We just discussed this, so it is true. The second part is the greatest number is of the producers, obviously, because from producers dependency relies on consumers, from consumers to consumers second, second to third. Okay, so all that is based on the lowest level of trophic system and the largest level of trophic system, that is your producers. Okay, so both of these are correct and this is the correct explanation of your assertion. Okay, assertion is blood plasma transports carbon dioxide in dissolved form while oxygen is transported by respiratory pigments. That is also correct, because blood plasma transports your carbon dioxide, although in the form of carboxyhemoglobin, but still transporting it through your blood plasma. And wherein oxygen is transported through respiratory pigments. What is this respiratory pigments? Nothing but hemoglobin itself. So it forms oxyhemoglobin. Okay, that we will come to know in later classes as well, but for now you just need to know that this is a correct statement. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than in oxygen. That is also true, because if it were soluble in oxygen, you would have found carbonates not to be associated with any other element or metals. They would simply exist as carbonates. But do you see any CO3 form? You don't. So they are not that soluble, they are not that stable. But in that case, you do find CHO. Have you seen glucose cubes, or have you seen sucrose cubes? These are your carbohydrates, a hydrated form of your carbon dioxide, but still they exist as such without having to merge with any other element for their stability. They can, but they may or may not also. So this statement is also correct. So both of these statements are correct, and this is the correct explanation of your assertion. Now moving on to the 10th. Timing and amount of hormones secreted by a gland are regulated in the human body. That is also correct. Why? Because time. Have you ever consumed food? Obviously everybody has consumed food, and in that consumption there is a hormone that is secreted called as insulin, which in terms or levels is helpful in maintaining your blood sugar level, along with another hormone that comes to play only when it is or only when you digest food, that is glucagon, released from your liver. Okay, now what is the amount of hormone secreted by a gland? So to of hormone, the levels of insulin and glucagon helps you to be either diabetic or you to be a normal person, because if you do not have the sufficient production of insulin, you will be suffering from a disease called as diabetes insipidus. Okay, that is simply your blood sugar levels are not in control. Now second is electrical impulse is an excellent means to transport information. That is true in the animal body, but there are some limitations to the use of electrical impulses. Can you name some? Obviously we can, because impulses travel like a wire. Okay, like a wire. So this wire itself, if it does not reach every portion of your body, because it does not, you may think that the nerve system travels everywhere, but it actually does not. Some of these are not that sensational. Why? Because have you ever plucked your hair? Because if you have, then you would have realized that only at the ends are they properly connected. But if you cut, we all have cut our hairs, okay, we have all went at least once in our life to barber shops, okay. So in that barber shops itself, when we cut our hair, do we feel that sensation of cutting the hair? No, we do not, because there are no nerve endings to it, okay. So there is your one limitation. The second limitation is that if you have read correctly, or if you have read properly, it is that every impulse is through a polarization and depolarization wave, followed by a stagnant period or a respite period or a break period, for which another impulse needs to come, okay. And that break gives it that only one impulse travels at one time, okay. Not more than one impulse can travel at a time, although that amount is lower, okay. The period of that respite is very slower or very less. Still, it is a one limitation of your nervous system, okay. 11. Do all variations in a species have equal chances? In a simple word, no. Why? Because variations are directional. Nature selects for only those that have the potential to outlive or outgrow through its survival of the fittest, okay. Suggest 2 ways of dealing with waste generated at home. You could have written segregation and composting. Segregation and composting as 1 point, and the second point would be your 3 R's: reuse, recycle, and rebuild, okay. These 3 are your, or these 3 and these 1 points are enough to score a good marks for this, okay. Why segregation and composting? Because that is going to help you to grow your own kitchen gardens, grow a sustainable form of life. You can actually grow your own biogas plants also. Not biogas plants actually, but you can actually supply to your home your own biogas fuels without having to rely on the liquid petroleum gases, okay. Now observe this diagram. I will give you some time to observe. In this you can see case P, Q and R, okay. All these, can you tell me what can happen in these, or what have you written in these? That in all these 3 conditions they will turn milky or turbid. Why? Because of the inoculation or the entry of your CO2. CO2 enters in all 3 and makes them change. Why? Because this is lime water, this is CaO. When it reacts with CaO plus CO2, it gives you CaCO3, that is calcium carbonate, okay. And in this calcium carbonate is the reason why it turns milky or it turns turbid, okay. The proper term is turbid, okay. Why does it turn turbid? Because it is much more heavier as compared to your normal water, okay. So what changes will be observed? It will turn turbid, okay. The second part is aerobic respiration taking place? Yes, there is an aerobic respiration here in case of your case Q. Second, is fermentation taking place? Yes, it is happening in case R, okay. Why? Because this is yeast and this is sugar solution. Anaerobic fermentation, okay, or anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration is also called as fermentation. That is releasing CO2 that is carried over through this pipe into your lime water, okay, and that is changing the color, okay. Simple question, not too much to think. Giving 2 examples, justify the statement that the sex of the offspring in all animals is not always genetically determined. There are 2 examples, very common examples. There is your turtle that changes, or your turtle species, not turtle as in such, turtle species, that will be the appropriate word. Turtle species change their sexes or change their sexes based on your temperature, incubation temperature. They form as eggs, right? The temperature decides whether it is a male or a female. Okay, same case for some fishes like salmons, which are socially dichotomous. That means if the social hierarchy demands for a male, then there will be more number of males. If the social dichotomy demands for female, then it will be females. Okay, differentiate between sex chromosomes of male and female human beings. The sex chromosomes of male and female is different only in the case of males with a Y chromosome, that is much more smaller as compared to X, with many less locus and genes available in X chromosome, but is responsible for its own type of inheritance, which we call Y-linked or sex-linked inheritance. Okay, read these questions. Attempt A or B, but we will be discussing both. Name an organ that helps in the formation of male germ cells, very common, that is your testes, and also mention the condition that favors, that is a reduced temperature, a lower temperature from your body. What is your body's temperature? That is 37.5 degrees C. So if you reduce the temperature at least 2 degrees C, that is what is favored for the male germ cells or sperm cells. What is this germ cells? Sperm cells. In male reproductive system, write the pathway followed to deliver male germ cells to the site of fertilization. What will be the pathway? From your testis it moves to your epididymis, epididymis to your vas deferens, vas deferens to your penile urethra, and from penile urethra to the vagina, vagina to the cervix, that is the mouth of the uterus, from the cervix to the uterus, from the uterus to the fallopian tubes, where the released ovum is fertilized and moves, and it gets planted into the uterus for further development of the offspring or child. Okay, mention the physical feature of the male germ cell that helps it to move towards the female germ cell. That will be the tail of the sperm cells. Okay, Radha has 3 children. She does not want to have any more children. Radha visits a nearby hospital to know the methods to prevent pregnancy. Okay, mention the name of any 2 ways other than the surgical methods following which Radha can avoid unwanted pregnancies. Okay, what are the 2 ways? First will be your contraceptives, second will be your condoms. In such contraceptives we can use contraceptive pills, and in that second case will be our condoms for both males and females. Okay, and one more thing you can add, that will be intrauterine devices without having to go through surgery. Okay, so what is this surgery? Name the surgical methods used to prevent pregnancy. That will be, in case of males, is vasectomy, that is cutting out a portion of the vas deferens, and for your females will be cutting out a part of the fallopian tube, that is called as tubectomy. Okay, there is one more method that is called as hysterectomy, that is the surgical removal of your ovary, surgical removal of your uterus. Okay, give one example each of sexually transmitted disease caused by bacteria and virus. Very simple, bacteria causes gonorrhea and virus causes your herpes. Okay, last question, please have a read about it. Okay, so this excerpt simply states, I'm not going to read the entire excerpt because this is very redundant. None of the questions are actually asked from this. The questions are straightforward. Okay, what are voluntary actions? Voluntary actions are conscious actions taken by the conscious part of your brain in response to an external stimuli. What will be the definition? It is a conscious decision or a conscious choice or a conscious action taken as a response to the external stimuli and controlled by the conscious process or conscious part of your brain. Okay, that is done. Which part of the brain is responsible for precision of voluntary actions? Precision, not the voluntary action, precision of voluntary action, that will be credited to cerebellum. Okay, Explain the role of medulla. What is this medulla? Medulla is the region that controls your involuntary actions, present just right here. There are three major portions to your brain: cerebrum, cerebellum, and your medulla, along thin-like structure that goes and connects from pons to your spinal cord. Okay. Now, how do the animal muscles move? Animal muscles move because of the contraction and relaxation caused by the impulses that are generated as a response and come on the basis of your calcium ion concentration and through the activity of actin and myosin that is responsible for creating the contraction and relaxation. That's it. I hope this video has helped you to clear some of the doubts, and if you still have or possess any kind of doubts, please let us know in the comment section. It was happy me teaching all of you some of the things or some of the questions. Okay, and I hope that you have given a wonderful examination, and I hope that you will be giving a wonderful examination. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead.